Hello, everyone, and welcome back to English Active Listening. I'm Alyssa, and I am so excited to be with you today, embarking on a truly transformative journey. This isn't just another lesson. It's about unlocking your true potential in English conversation. We're diving deep into how you can polish your speaking skills, making them sound not just correct, but truly clear, effortlessly natural, and wonderfully, authentically human. This episode is especially for you, our amazing intermediate English learners. You already have a strong foundation in grammar and vocabulary. You understand a good deal of what you hear and read. But perhaps there's still that little voice inside wondering, how do I make my English flow more like a native speaker's? How do I sound less like I'm translating in my head and more like myself? If that sounds familiar, you are in the perfect place. And I promise you, by the end of this, you'll have a clear path forward. I hear from so many of you who feel this very specific frustration. You can ace grammar tests, understand complex articles, and even write fantastic emails without a single mistake. But then, when you're faced with a real person, in a real fast-paced conversation, it's like a sudden wall goes up. The words feel stuck, you hesitate, or perhaps what comes out feels a little stiff, a bit textbook-like, lacking that easy, natural rhythm you hear from native speakers. I remember vividly a conversation with a student named Maria from Brazil. She was brilliant, incredibly knowledgeable, a true expert in her field. But she confessed to me, "Alyssa, I know the words. I have them in my mind. But when I speak, it feels like I'm building each sentence brick by brick, translating word for word in my head. And then the words just fall out of my mouth, not flow. It's exhausting, and I don't sound like me." Has that ever happened to you? That disconnect between what you know and how you actually speak? That feeling of your thoughts tripping over your tongue? Well, that's precisely what we're going to bridge today. We're going to work on transforming that hesitation into confident self-expression, that stiffness into natural, graceful flow, and those textbook phrases into lively, genuinely human expressions that sound just like you. So settle in, get ready to listen actively, perhaps even grab a notebook, and let's peel back the layers of natural English conversation, piece by piece, revealing the secrets to sounding more like a native speaker. The absolute cornerstone of all effective communication in English, or any language for that matter, is clarity. If the person you're speaking with has to strain to catch your words, or has to work hard to piece together your meaning, then no matter how brilliant or important your ideas are, they simply won't land. The message gets lost in translation, not because of the words themselves, but because of how they're delivered. And clarity, it's important to understand, isn't just about picking the right words. It's deeply rooted in the very physical act of how you produce sounds, and, just as importantly, how you organize and structure your thoughts. Let's begin with the very basics, those foundational elements of clear speech: pronunciation and enunciation. Think of pronunciation as aiming for the correct sound of a word, getting the target right. Enunciation, on the other hand, is about how clearly and distinctly you make those sounds. It's about being precise, making sure each sound, each syllable, is well-formed and easy to hear. Imagine trying to paint a detailed picture with a broad brush. It would look messy, right? Enunciation is like using a fine brush. It makes your speech sharp and clear. One of the most common challenges I observe, especially among my intermediate learners, is the tendency to speak very quickly. This often comes from a place of nervousness or a subconscious desire to keep up with the rapid pace of native speakers. But here's the powerful secret, something that might surprise you. Slowing down can actually make you sound more confident, more in control, and significantly clearer. When you consciously choose to reduce your speaking speed, even by just a tiny bit, you give your brain those precious extra milliseconds it needs. Time to retrieve the right words, time to properly structure your sentences, and time to articulate each sound with care and precision. Try a simple but effective experiment right now. Pick any short paragraph, maybe from an article you're reading, or even a part of this very script. Record yourself reading it aloud at your usual speaking pace. Then, immediately after, record that exact same passage again. This time, deliberately speaking just a little slower, focusing on each word. When you listen back, you'll likely be amazed at how much crisper, how much more understandable, and frankly, how much more confident your slower recording sounds. It's a complete game changer, I promise you. I recall my student, David, from Germany. He had absolutely impeccable grammar. He knew all the rules, but his words often merged together because he spoke at a very high speed. Once he started consciously practicing to slow down, his clarity soared. And with that improved clarity, his overall confidence in speaking skyrocketed. Beyond speed, let's think about the physical act of speaking. How does your mouth move when you talk? Many of us, and yes, this includes native speakers at times, can fall into the habit of mumbling or speaking with very minimal mouth movement. It's like trying to sing a beautiful song with your mouth almost completely closed. The sound just can't escape clearly, can it? So, when you're practicing alone, truly exaggerate your mouth movements. Make those distinct shapes for the vowel sounds, for ah, ee, oo, and really articulate those consonant sounds. It might feel a little silly or over the top at first, almost like you're making funny faces. But this physical practice genuinely trains your mouth muscles to produce much clearer sounds in your everyday speech. And here's another crucial detail often overlooked. Don't let those word endings disappear. In English, those subtle final sounds are incredibly important because they carry vital meaning. Think about the difference between walk and walked. That little T sound at the end of walked instantly tells us it's in the past. Or the difference between cat and cats. These tells us it's plural. If you drop these sounds, your meaning can become unclear or even misinterpreted. Pay close attention to them. Give them the clarity they truly deserve. Now, let's shift our focus to the very backbone of understanding in conversation. How you structure your thoughts. For genuine clarity in spontaneous English conversation, my best advice is this. Keep your sentences simple and direct. Resist that common urge, especially as an intermediate learner, to construct overly complex, multi-clause sentences. That's often where people get tangled up, lose their train of thought, and confuse their listener. I saw this happen so many times with Maria. When she tried to explain a complex project at her new job, she'd start building these incredibly long, winding sentences in her head. By the time she got to the end, she'd forgotten her initial point. Or her listener was completely lost in the grammatical maze. Instead of saying something like, subsequent to the inclement meteorological conditions, which unfortunately render any outdoor recreational activities unfeasible, it would be judicious for us to reevaluate our previously conceived plans. You could simply say, The weather's bad, so we should probably change our plans. See how much easier that is to process? It's direct, concise, and effortlessly clear. So aim for one main idea per sentence whenever possible. If you absolutely must link multiple ideas, use clear, straightforward connecting words. And to act as signposts for your listener, gently guiding them through your thoughts, make good use of transition words. Phrases like however, therefore, in addition, for example, on the other hand, or even simple numerical markers like first, second, third are incredibly useful. They create a smooth, logical progression, making your speech much easier to follow and showing the relationships between your ideas without you having to explicitly explain them. Once you've firmly nailed clarity, the exciting next step is to make your English flow like a natural stream, not a choppy river of disconnected words. This is all about natural flow, the rhythm and connection that makes your speech sound truly effortless and engaging. It's the profound difference between hearing someone read aloud from a written script, with every word carefully enunciated, and hearing someone truly express themselves spontaneously in a real conversation. A significant part of achieving natural flow involves understanding the inherent rhythm of conversation itself, pacing and pauses. Think about how native speakers talk. We don't speak like robots, with perfectly equal spaces between every single word. Instead, we use pauses naturally, instinctively. My good friend Kenji from Japan, a brilliant engineer, often told me he felt like he had to talk incredibly fast to sound natural to keep up. But when he spoke quickly, he'd frequently stumble, lose his breath, and his words would get jumbled and unclear. What I told him and what I tell you is this: don't rush. Allow yourself those brief moments of silence. These aren't awkward silences, not at all. They are actually strategic pauses that serve multiple, valuable purposes. They give you a much-needed chance to breathe, which immediately makes your speech sound more relaxed and less strained. They give your brain a moment to collect its thoughts, to find the next idea or word. And crucially, they give your listener vital time to process what you've just said, allowing your words to sink in. Pauses can also be used to emphasize an important point, like a dramatic beat in a story. Or they can even subtly signal that you're ready for the other person to respond in a conversation. So instead of filling every tiny gap with an or which can sound hesitant, try a short, silent pause instead. It makes you sound much more confident and composed. Now, let's talk about the real magic behind natural flow, connected speech, often called linking. This is why listening to native speakers can sometimes feel like they're speaking very quickly, even when their actual pace isn't that fast. In spontaneous spoken English, words often don't exist in isolation. They gracefully blend together. Think about it. When you say pick up a book in casual speech, it often sounds more like pike up, where the K sound from pick flows directly into the sound of up. Or an apple naturally becomes a napple. This is consonant-vowel linking, where a word ending in a consonant sound smoothly blends with the vowel sound at the beginning of the next word. It creates a seamless, continuous flow. Similarly, consonant-consonant linking happens when two similar consonant sounds meet, like black coffee sounding more like black coffee, where the two K sounds merge into one longer sound. Sometimes, even between two vowel sounds, a tiny I or W sound is subtly inserted to smooth the transition, which we call vowel-vowel linking. For instance, go out might sound like go out, and do it might sound like do it. And then there are the famous reductions, the shortened, casual forms of words you hear all the time in everyday speech. Going to becomes gonna, want to becomes wanna, or did you often sounds like did ya. Now, you don't need to force these from day one, but as you actively listen to native speakers, you'll start to notice them. Try mimicking them. The more you recognize and practice these linking patterns, the more effortless and truly natural your English will become. It's like learning the rhythm section of a band. It makes the whole song groove and dance. And speaking of music, English has a distinct and beautiful melody, intonation. This is the rise and fall of your voice as you speak, and it conveys so much more than just the words themselves. It tells us if you are asking a question, making a definitive statement, or expressing surprise or disbelief. Typically, for clear statements or which questions like what's your name, Zrenia, your voice will have a falling intonation at the very end. For yes, no questions like are you coming, Zrenia, your voice will often have a rising intonation, almost as if you're asking for confirmation. And sometimes you'll use a rise-fall intonation when offering choices, like, do you want tea or coffee? The best practice for mastering intonation is pure, unadulterated imitation. Pick a short segment from a podcast you enjoy, a YouTube video of someone speaking naturally, or a scene from a movie. Listen closely, not just to the words, but to the music of their voice. Then, try to repeat the sentences exactly as you hear them, focusing purely on the rise and fall of the voice, the emphasis they place on certain words. Don't just hear it. Truly try to feel it in your own vocal cords, mimicking the melody. Now we arrive at the part that truly makes your English shine, that adds the authentic sparkle and charm, human-like expressions and nuance. This is where your personality truly shines through, where you move beyond simply being a speaker of English to being an English speaker, someone who connects on a deeper level. A huge part of sounding natural comes from using idioms and phrasal verbs. These are the colorful brushstrokes of the language, the little quirks that make English so lively and vibrant. Their meanings often aren't literal, which can be tricky at first, but incredibly fun once you get the hang of them. Think about an idiom like, it's raining cats and dogs. You wouldn't imagine actual animals falling from the sky, would you? It just means it's raining very heavily. Or break a leg, which means good luck, before a performance. And phrasal verbs like look up, meaning to find information in a book or on the internet. Or take off, meaning to depart as an airplane does. Or to remove clothing. Add so much versatility and practical use to your vocabulary. Maria, who I mentioned earlier, started a new job in a multinational company, and her colleagues would casually use phrases like, let's touch base next week, meaning to reconnect, or I need to look into that, meaning to investigate. She initially felt quite lost in these conversations because these phrases weren't in her textbook. My best advice for intermediate learners is to learn them in context. Don't just try to memorize long, daunting lists of idioms. Instead, when you hear an idiom or a phrasal verb in a movie, a song, a podcast, or a real conversation, write down the whole sentence it was used in. Understand its meaning in that specific situation, and then, crucially, try to create a couple of your own sentences using it. Start with the most common ones you encounter frequently, and gradually they'll become a natural, effortless part of your active vocabulary. Another element that adds to that human touch, surprisingly, are fillers and discourse markers. I know it might sound a little odd to suggest using words like or but in natural, spontaneous conversation, we all use them sparingly to give ourselves a split second to think, or to subtly signal something to our listener. Think about common ones like, you know, I mean, right, or well. These aren't just empty sounds. They serve a purpose. They can buy you a moment to collect your thoughts, soften a statement to make it less direct, check for listener understanding like, you know what I mean, swing or smoothly transition between different thoughts. However, a crucial point here for intermediate learners is moderation. Too many fillers can make you sound hesitant or unsure. The goal is to sprinkle them in naturally, like seasoning, not to drown your speech in them. And then there are discourse markers, which are phrases that help organize and manage the flow of the conversation itself. These include words like so, anyway, by the way, actually, basically, to be honest, in fact, or on the other hand. They act like little conversational GPS points, guiding your listener. For example, if you want to smoothly introduce a new topic, you might say, by the way, have you heard about? If you're summarizing a long explanation, you could say, all in all, it was a great day. They create structure and help your listener follow your narrative effortlessly, making your conversation much more pleasant for everyone. And finally, to truly sound human and connect with others, let your emotions show in your voice. Vary your tone, volume, and pitch. Flat, monotone speech is incredibly boring for everyone involved. If you're excited about something, let your voice reflect that. Speak a little louder, raise your pitch slightly. If you're being serious or sharing something personal, you might lower your tone. Don't be afraid to use exclamations and interjections like wow, oh no, great, seriously, or exactly. They add immediate color, genuine emotion, and a sense of spontaneity to your reactions. And for emphasis, to really make your point land, rely on adverbs of degree and intensifiers. Instead of just saying, it was good, try it was really good, or it was absolutely amazing. These small words add so much power, conviction, and personality to your descriptions, making your speech far more engaging. Remember, a conversation isn't a monologue. It's a beautiful dance, a back and forth exchange. Being a great speaker also means being an excellent active listener. Show that you're engaged with active listening cues, a simple nod, direct eye contact, or small verbal affirmations like, right, or I see. These little signals tell the person speaking that you're following along and interested. If something isn't clear, don't be afraid to ask clarifying questions like, could you explain what you mean by that? Or, so are you saying? This not only ensures your understanding, but also shows genuine engagement and respect. Learn to agree and disagree politely. For agreement, phrases like, exactly, that's a good point, or I couldn't agree more work wonderfully. If you need to express disagreement, do so softly and respectfully. I see what you're saying, but... Or, I'm not sure I completely agree. And if you absolutely must interrupt someone in a conversation, do so courteously. Excuse me for interrupting, but... Or a quick apologetic, sorry, just one thing. It's all about being respectful while still actively participating and contributing. So, how do we bring all of this wonderful knowledge to life? It's simple, yet profound. Practice, practice, practice. But not just any practice. We're talking about deliberate, focused practice. As intermediate learners, you're past the very first steps, and you're ready for slightly more challenging and targeted exercises that will truly move the needle on your fluency. One of the most powerful and insightful tools you have, right at your fingertips, is your own voice recorder. Record yourself speaking and then listen critically. Don't cringe or be embarrassed. Just listen objectively for what you can improve. Pick a short story you like, describe your day in English, or even just read a paragraph from a book. Record it, then listen back. Really ask yourself, was I clear? Did I mumble at any point? Were there too many ums or hesitations? Did my voice have a good melody, or was it flat and monotone? This self-analysis is incredibly valuable because it immediately highlights your habits. You can also try shadowing, which is a fantastic technique for developing natural flow and intonation. Find a short audio clip, a news report, a YouTube interview with a native speaker, or a segment from a podcast you enjoy. Listen to it once, then try to speak along with the speaker at the same time, focusing intensely on mimicking their speed, their rhythm, and especially their intonation. It's like being a vocal chameleon, trying to match their every vocal move. This is especially effective for intermediate learners because you likely have enough vocabulary to keep up, which allows you to focus purely on the sound and feel of the language. And speaking of mimicking, find your English-a-speech mentor. This could be an actor you admire, a specific YouTuber, a favorite podcaster, or even a friend whose English speaking style you genuinely like and wish to emulate. Listen to them frequently, truly absorbing their patterns. Then, pick out specific sentences, specific phrases they say, and literally repeat them out loud, trying to match their every nuance, the precise stress they place, how they link words, the rise and fall of their voice. It's an incredibly effective way to absorb those subtle, natural speech patterns that no textbook can fully teach. Most importantly, and this cannot be emphasized enough, get out there and engage in real conversations. This is the ultimate testing ground, where everything you learn truly comes alive. Find language partners online on platforms designed for language exchange. Join a local English conversation club in your area, or simply make a conscious effort to speak English with friends, colleagues, or classmates. And here's the most liberating thought for us intermediate learners. Do not fear mistakes. Seriously, they are your very best teachers. Every native speaker makes mistakes, every single day. The goal isn't perfection, it's effective communication. When you're in a conversation, your priority should be to get your message across fluently and clearly. You can always refine accuracy later, during your dedicated study time. Think of it like this. It's far better to speak with a few errors and be understood than to stay silent because you're afraid of being imperfect. And if you're comfortable and have a trusted native speaker friend, tutor, or language partner, gently ask them for feedback. Be specific. Could you tell me if I sounded clear there? Or do I use like too much when I speak? Their insights can be incredibly valuable. And finally, on your journey, continue to actively expand your repertoire of natural expressions. This is an ongoing process that will continuously enhance your human-like speech. Whenever you read or listen to English, keep an ear or an eye out for new idioms, phrasal verbs, and common conversational phrases. Don't just list them, Learn them in the context of a full sentence or a short story. This helps you understand how they're truly used in real-life situations. And make it a habit to use spaced repetition apps, like Anki, to review these expressions regularly, ensuring they become deeply embedded in your long-term memory and are readily available for your spontaneous conversations. Improving your English speaking and conversational skills is a continuous journey, a fascinating exploration of connection and self-expression. It requires patience, keen active listening, and consistent, thoughtful practice. But remember, the ultimate reward isn't just about sounding correct. It's about making your English sound authentically natural, crystal clear, and genuinely you. It's about connecting with people, sharing your stories, and expressing your unique perspective in a way that feels effortless and real. So go out there, embrace these strategies, and don't be afraid to let your amazing English voice be heard. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up, share it with anyone else who's navigating their English learning journey, and, of course, subscribe to English Active Listening for more lessons designed to help you sound more natural and confident. I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. What's one real-life situation where you wish you could speak English more naturally? And what's one specific tip from today's session that you're going to try in your next conversation? Let's learn and grow together. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next video.